Wait, this isn't the Disability Channel. This isn't the Max Derritt Channel. It must be like the most nomadic podcast on the internet at the moment, Side. Welcome to our third home at the Triple S League. I'm your host, Max Derritt, and that guy over there is one of the owners of the Triple S League. You want to introduce yourself, even though people probably already know you?
I'm Obsidian, and yes, the Maximum News Show has now found a new permanent home here, and I mean, it's like seriously permanent, guys. Like we're not moving again. So no more favors for other people. So yay, we're here. Although I mean, not saying that you're not a favor, because you've been a friend of the channel for a long time. So yeah, hey. Max is joining us over here. We are going to be doing a bunch of different things with this show, and with Max doing more news, more stuff, including lots more shorts. So please subscribe, and just keep an eye out, because we're going to be clipping out little bits of this show, other shows, stuff like that, and we're going to be doing something with that sometime soon. So stay tuned. We've got a lot going on, and just building off of our the news that we had a couple days ago when we announced this, is that we also have a plan for a bunch of additional content, and we're just in the middle of wrapping up a huge project. We'll be done that in about a week and a half, and that's when we'll be able to focus on this stuff a lot more. And then during the winter, we're also going to be doing a lot more content, a lot more online and that kind of stuff. And we're making a big splash over to Rumble as well. So if you're ready to start watching us there's going to be a ton more content heading over in that direction. So join us.
Mm-hmm. And one last thing, guys, if you're coming over to this channel from my channel, I imagine you probably would have found this podcast by me putting up a post on my community page. Just do me a favor, make sure you hit that like button. It not only helps this video, but all the other videos that are on the Triple S League YouTube channel. It'll pass them around into people's recommended feeds, and it will help us build up what we're trying to do here in even greater numbers. And it'll be good, because unlike a lot of other news shows, we like to cover topics that sometimes people are a bit too afraid to cover because of backlash or controversy or whatever. And all we just try to do here is be honest and get right into the news. Today's a bit of an exception. We needed to explain what the deal is with the show to people who aren't familiar. This is our new home, but mostly we just like to dive right into the news. And let's just get right to exactly that. So first of all, GTA. Grand Theft Auto, not the Greater Toronto Area. Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition came out yesterday, right? On the 11th?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, we're recording this on the 12th, the Friday. Before it came out, I have to say, just because GTA San Andreas is one of my top 5 favorite games of all time, I was going to be excited no matter what. Plus, it helped that the trailer that Rockstar released for the game made things look pretty good. Like the trailer that they released, and just sort of showing how things used to look compared to how they look now, what they showed us looked good, in my opinion. But then I got a little bit worried leading up to last Thursday, because normally, like, any game company would be more than willing to show off gameplay if they were confident in their product, just to help build up hype. I mean, like, even though GTA, like the original GTA trilogy, is an established brand and they've been around for a long time, it's nice to just let us feast our eyes on what you guys have got coming, especially when we love these games and we like to see how you update them. But we didn't get any of that. We didn't get any of that until the game's released yesterday. And now I understand why. Now let me just qualify this for a second. There are some times, like, I've been watching videos on YouTube of people posting their gameplay. There are times where things actually look pretty good. They look good. It really depends on the angle, like whether or not, like how close you are to the ground, whether you're in a helicopter or a plane or something, and like what weather effects are going on. And it also depends on which game you're playing. Apparently, they put more effort into a GTA 3 and GTA Vice City than they did into San Andreas, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, there are times where it does look good. But then, there are some other times. I'm going to list for you, Saib, some of the things that people have come across and that they have yet to fix. And these are things that you guys, if you were to seek them out for yourselves in the games as they currently are right now, you could find them. So, there are trees that are hovering above the ground that are nowhere near the ground when you go into the forest. there are textures that are stretched. Like, just imagine, like, you have a photo and then you enlarge it to an unimaginable degree. That's what some of these textures look like. Like, you could be looking at a hill and like 90% of the hill, no, 80% of the hill looks good. And then there's like a 20% of it that looks like, no, that really shouldn't be there. Let's see what else. Character models. In San Andreas, Carl, one of the girlfriends that Carl can romance, her name is Denise. She's the one that has, like, she's wearing the sports jersey and all that. In the remaster, she looks like Gollum. Like Smeagol from Lord of the Rings. And that is not an over-exaggeration. You look at how she looks in this remake, she looks like Gollum. It's quite disturbing. Let's see. Candy Sucks. That's the actual name of a character from Vice City. Candy Sucks. She has, she has over-exaggerated proportions, let's say, in the original game, but at least there, they don't look like cartoonish. In the remastered version, it looks like some 13-year-old kid exaggerated all of her features to like 100%, and they did it in like the Saints Row 3 character creator. That's how bad it looks. Let's see what else. There are misspellings on some of the signs that you can find around the different cities. Here's another thing that some people have been complaining about, and I understand to a degree. It's the draw distance in specifically San Andreas. Like, if you were to go on a jet and then go up into the sky, you can see all the way over to where San Fierro and Las Venturas are, whereas in the original versions you couldn't because there's fog. And people are sort of complaining about that because it makes everything seem so much smaller. Judging
from what I know about California, that's not fog, that's smog.
Right. It's pollution. Yeah.
And frankly, I mean, I'm a little annoyed at some of this. Like, I mean, I personally really like candy. I mean, the dentist tells me I got to stop, eating so much. It's very unhealthy. And, it's also unhealthy for your body too.
But it's so good.
I mean, these are, and I laugh. I kid. I laugh quite hard. Actually, legitimately, I laugh very hard at the floating trees, the rocks, the stretched land, because how you get this kind of stuff as a game designer. The only way you get this stuff is when you either you have idiots running your world building company, or what you did is you pumped the whole thing through basically it's like a high grade translator where it takes the old stuff and then it kind of like builds it new over stuff, or your textures and your meshes have just completely broken.
Mm-hmm.
But at somewhere in there, you either have people who don't know what they're doing, who are building the world and who built it like that, or you have a mesh/texture issue which isn't properly conjoining things properly, or you've run it through a translation device and then you're just like,
good enough.
Hey, should we go through here and double check everything, make sure that everything's like, done this right? Because, this technology doesn't run 100% well. And the answer that somebody goes is, no, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, that's actually a very good comparison. Like, GTA Definitive Edition is the equivalent of doing your French homework, where you take English sentences, put them through Google Translate, and then it pops out what you got. Sometimes it'll get it right, and then other times it'll get like 80% of it right, or 50% of it right. And then you turn that in, and then it's just like, I totally did all this on my own. Aren't I great? Isn't my knowledge so far superior to everybody else's? And it's like, no, it's quite clear that you didn't. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things to do, is take a bunch of dialogue from an adventure or quest or something like that, put it through one translator, then translate that into a different one. So like, take something, do it into French, English, do it from English into French, and then from that French into Spanish, and then from that Spanish into German, and then from that German back to English, and then read the sentence. It's hilarious. It's a good time, especially, if you're,
really bored.
You're really bored. But it's not something that you should do in a professional setting. I want to be very clear about that. Anybody who does this in a professional setting is not what you call a professional. They're called, not a professional.
Unprofessional, yes. And just a couple other things that aren't necessarily, well, one of them is due to incompetence, I would say. This game came out on the Switch. Apparently they're having problems with frame drops. for a game, like the latest of these games came out in 2004. That'd be San Andreas. So that's 17 years ago. And I understand that it's updated, but you're updating a game that's that old. It can't be on even on hardware like the Switch. It shouldn't be difficult to keep it at least 30 frames per second, if that's the least you can do. But no, apparently it's going down to 20, sometimes 15, according to what some people are saying when they're playing this game. It's unacceptable. And then one other thing that really, like, it might seem minor, and in grand scheme of things it is, but it's really annoying to me. One of the things that I love absolutely so much about San Andreas is the soundtrack. The radio stations that you can listen to, the compilation of music that they have in that game is the absolute best in any game ever, in my opinion. And 20 songs are missing from that game because of, I imagine it's because of licensing issues. So I can no longer listen to the Motorhead cover that Ozzy Osbourne does of Hellraiser. I can't listen to Killing in the Name by Rage Against the Machine. I can't listen to Express Yourself by NWA. It's just like, I mean, I imagine
Rage Against the Machine. I'm pretty sure you don't mean Rage Against the Machine. I think you mean shills for the machine.
Yes. Now they are, yeah, and charging.
It's so funny watching a band who is all about like fight the establishment, fight the machine, fight the giant corporations who are now completely sold out.
Yeah.
And again, I don't mean to be negative if you're a fan of them. I just found that was really funny because I read an article recently that just absolutely shocked me at how much those guys are now making and how much they do for big business and big corporation. And it's quite frightful. It's like, wow, you guys sold out hard.
Yeah, it's like,
oh Lord,
no disrespect to their music. Some of their music is off the chain good, but it's kind of amazing just how quickly people will turn against their own principles when capitalism just starts working too much in their favor. Kind of like what happened with Rockstar, when they made GTA 5 and then they're like, oh, well, we don't really have to work another day in our lives because we're making so much off GTA Online and just the GTA name brand as it is, that we can half-ass the remastered trilogy or the definitive, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's not even definitive. It's not even remastered, but just the new thing that they're putting out that is half-baked. I lost my train of thought because I'm just so upset about this whole situation. Man, I'm glad that I bought the original versions before they went off of Steam. But yeah, that's the state of things right now. Obviously, there are people out there that are enjoying it. If you are enjoying it, more power to you. If you are enjoying it, please explain to me why it is. Like, maybe you can try and convince me to pick this up. But you know what? If I am going to go back to these games, I think I'm just going to stick with the fan-made mods because some of them are just as good as some aspects of the definitive edition or better.
I have to caution you. You probably will at some point be getting a letter
from Take-Two,
mail from a lawyer saying, how dare you run mods? We know where you live and we're coming for you.
I'm not afraid of you. Come on.
Oh, be very afraid. Be very afraid. So, yeah. Okay, I'm not going to get into it now.
Yeah, okay.
I'm very afraid. They will do things like call up your ISP and have you banned from ever being able to get another, get the ability to actually purchase internet.
Mm-hmm.
That is how far they are willing to go. You might say, is that legal? And the answer to that is no, it's not legal. Well, it's legal if you don't get caught. So again, allegedly.
What is an alleged though?
I do want to compare this to another game that also came out yesterday, the 11th, that also happens to be a remake of a really old game that is running so well and so efficiently that it is crashing. And you might say, how is that possible? Well, it turns out when the computer and the program that you're running, the program that Skyrim, I'm talking about Skyrim, obviously.
Right.
So Skyrim has been, its anniversary edition runs so smoothly and it has the ability to run so many additional mods now and it has such a fast acting reactive system that it's actually causing the Indigo's reference to crash and the script to crash because it's trying to load everything so quickly because it's like hyper efficient now. Back in the day, a few like 5-6 years ago, I was running around like 400 some odd mods, and yeah, I had to do some things to make that happen. I would load a new game, and I would get up and I would go get a drink of water, take a break or something like that, because the amount of time that it took for the game to fully load all of the mods and get everything running, I literally had to just sit there and wait for a few minutes. I couldn't reliably save the game in a busy place. I had to find a quiet corner in which I could save the game so that when I loaded back into the game, it didn't try to it wouldn't get stuck loading the hundreds and hundreds of mods that I have. Now, the game is running so smoothly that it's literally causing issues when you actually try to do that. So they have a fix. I think the fix is already out or is coming out very quickly. But this just goes to show that Skyrim and Bethesda have managed to just like really nail this. Everybody I've talked to has said that the game runs hyper smoothly. Everything is very gorgeous. It's like a fairly, like, if you were to take a whole bunch of mods that are like in canon only and add them to the game, you basically have a whole bunch of you have basically like 150 some odd mods, and the game just runs so much smoother. There's new dungeons with new fighting experiences and all this kind of stuff. It looks really great. And I got to say that I'm glad to hear that, because this means that for, other games coming up, Starfield, the next Elder Scrolls, the next, Fallout, whenever they get around to that, they're going to be able to do a better job. Mm-hmm. Because now some of you might be saying, well, they have had, a decade to improve Skyrim. And yes, I very much agree with that. And there has been a lot of modders working on this. There are the paid modders, but there's a lot of modders that have gone in and really improved things overall and has made the game just so much better. And they've taught, Bethesda some things after they had that horrendous 76, and they learned from that mistake, which I would say at this point they have. You might not like 76, you might not want to give it a chance, but I think we can look at Bethesda and say, I think they have learned, because, their latest release wasn't buggy at all. There were some minor problems with it, but in comparison to a bunch of the other AAA games that released in around the same time, far less problems than normal, mm-hmm. especially from a Bethesda title. So again, I'm not saying that go out and run out and pre-order stuff and buy the anniversary edition and do this and do that. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that
it's just a contrast.
They have improved significantly, and I think that is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing, because we've been wanting them to improve on this stuff. We were really upset about 76. And just overall, they appear to be listening, and they appear to be involving more, modders and creators. And I think that's great. And I think that's wonderful. And let's cross our fingers and hope that they don't ruin the next game or the game after that, because I really want to love, Fallout, and I'm worried that may not be a thing if they were to have continued on that path. So we'll see. I do not trust Microsoft, but hopefully they know that this side of the company is not to be, screwed with. So
right.
Yeah, there's the Bethesda news. Todd Howard did a thing the other day. Even his son is asking him, Dad, where is, when's Elder Scrolls 6? People are asking.
He raised him well.
So that's good to know. And overall, I got to say that I think that just in general, I think we're seeing some good positive stuff here. So
yeah. And also, in case you missed it, Saib, it was either announced today or yesterday that yes, mods are definitely coming to Starfield, which we already kind of knew, but.
Oh yeah, no. Of course it is. The fact that it's made in that engine, and that's the nice thing about this engine, is that you can create a ton of mods. Now, there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to say, I don't want them to use this engine because it's garbage. It's like, wait until you see the upgrades that they've done.
Yeah, it's upgraded now.
Wait until you see what kind of tech they're bringing to the table. Don't pre-order. Again, I'm really asking people, don't pre-order. That's not good. But you can be assured that this isn't the same choppy garbage engine that you're used to. At least that's what they're saying.
Right.
And again, I can't comment on this directly, so
we'll see. So let's move on to the next topic that we have here. Oh, we're talking about Activision and Blizzard again. Okay, so we got two different things that we want to bring up. Saib has one thing. I'll start with my thing real quick. It looks like Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4 have been officially delayed. This was during a conference call that Blizzard was having.
Financial conference call. It was a bloodbath. It was not good.
Oh yeah, I didn't hear about the specific details of it. I just saw this article from Kotaku that says that during this investors call, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have to." We were. I imagine they were aiming for.
I believe this was right after they announced that their new CEO, co-leader, not CEO, co-leader GM or whatever they're calling it in the Blizzard wing, has stepped down and will no longer be working with the company.
Are you talking about Jay Allen Brack?
No. That was ages ago. No, their new person that they got to replace him, they replaced him with two people, a female lady and a guy.
Right.
And the female lady has already stepped down and is walking away from Blizzard.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wait, it's not, her name's not Amy, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Amy Dunham. Okay, yeah. All right, I was going to bring her up. My bad. Yeah, I got my notes mixed around here. Jeez.
Like I said, it was a bloodbath. Their stock dropped another like 20-30% following that. There's calls internally. There's like half the major stockholders are now suing Bobby Kotick directly.
Good.
A bunch of other people are suing a bunch of other stuff. I mean, there's of course the lawsuits that are all happening. There's the questions of how much was the. I know you're gonna roll your eyes. You're gonna go, oh, what's I'm talking about now? He's crazy. Okay, the statement I'm about to say is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I have checked and double checked and triple checked, and y'all, if you don't believe me, can go out and check again. The question of how much the CIA was involved in muddling things up is a question that now also needs to be answered. And again, you might go, "That's what? You're crazy." No, that turns out to be true. So a couple months ago, I had gotten some interesting information, and I don't think we've talked about this yet. So I'm going to ask Max. Max, the CIA has they got a lot of workers. They're not a mega company. There's not 1 million people who work for the CIA every year.
Right. No, we did talk about this on one of the previous episodes of Maximum News.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I couldn't remember if I mentioned it because this is one of those things where it's like I have more information than I can talk about. So just in general, most people would assume that no corporation in America has more than like 20 people formerly worked at the CIA, because it's not like they're hiring like 50,000 people, like full-time embedded people. Now turns out Blizzard and Activision is one of the highest companies with the most amount of retired or no longer working at the CIA people. This is really weird. The fact that that's the case. I mean, maybe it's just them wanting to like move into some more relaxing news or relaxing development or program or job or something. I don't know.
Well, actually,
but that's kind of weird.
You know what, Simon? It actually makes perfect sense because, with all the lack of investigation that had been going into the sexual harassment stuff that's been happening around Blizzard, it would make sense that the CIA, a bunch of people have been working for them, because doesn't the CIA stand for can investigate at all? Yeah. No, it is very strange. But yeah, because of people like Amy Dunham.
Don't mind us Canadians over here. We're just gonna sit over here and mind our own business and not talk about the South so much. It's just very strange. So yeah, you're right. Overwatch and Diablo 4 have both been delayed again, not to 2022 to 2023
at the earliest.
And that's exactly. That is the earliest. It was also discovered that their temporary workers and their intro level workers were being paid $13 an hour to start in Southern California, where you
Yeah.
have to be making at least 80K a year to have what you would call slightly above the poverty line of workers. So yeah, no overtime, no not just no overtime. You didn't get holidays, paid holidays.
Yeah.
You didn't get any medical coverage at all, apparently. Again, going off of what I've heard. This is frightful.
It is very frightful. Like, don't people get into this industry for the big bucks? I mean, like, that's where the economy is going right now, is into technology and being online and computers and games and all that. And yet, with all the education that you go through in order to be able to get a job at like, even at a place like Blizzard, which does require a certain skill set, to go there and get paid minimum wage in California? Are you out of your mind? No.
So just so you know, just so y'all know, these people working for Blizzard, some of them were making around or less than $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's before taxes.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I don't think you'd actually get taxed at this rate because you're technically below the poverty line. So they have increased their wage to a minimum start wage of $17 an hour now, due to the amount of pressure that the employees and various advocacy groups managed to bring down on Blizzard. So at least we can say, yay, there's an improvement.
Yes. It's an improvement. Yes.
Yeah.
Was that so hard? Like Mr. Bobby Kotick, who prior to his pay cut making $200 million a year, we can't swear on this show. There's so much about these stories that makes me want to swear, but I don't know, I guess I could just take solace in the fact that all this terrible stuff is actually happening to Blizzard. I mean, it's like, oh, well, no, are you taking pride in people losing their jobs? Well, maybe if they didn't engage in these unethical practices in the first place, then none of this would have been happening. Maybe if they were a more ethical gaming company like, I don't know, Remedy, IO, From Software, gaming companies like that, this wouldn't be happening. But no, you just greedy MFs.
So the threshold, if you're wondering, the threshold for being above the poverty line in the States for a family of four, that's two children and two parents, obviously, was $26,000. If you were making less than that, you were below the poverty line.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's right about how much they were paying these people for living in one of the most expensive places to live in the United States. So now they've bumped that up so that most of those people are now making closer to $35,000 a year. And just wow.
Wow. So difficult.
It's so frightful that this is what your favorite big corporations will do given the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's scary.
And you know what? I'm still going to be pessimistic about this because I wonder how much that $17 wage is going to make a difference, considering all the inflation that we've been seeing going around.
Yeah.
Man, but hopefully justice will be served overall as long as we keep putting pressure on them and we keep talking about this, guys. Like I've been saying on all the previous Maximum News podcasts when we've been talking about Activision Blizzard, do not forget about this. Do not let just the news cycle bury all this and let Blizzard hope that we'll just forget about everything that they've done and just, pretend that, oh, well, we'll just buy Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4 when it comes out. No, don't forget. Keep putting the pressure on them. Okay, so that's all that. We got a couple of other stories that we wanted to talk about. Saib, Bellular, what's the deal with him? And maybe explain who he is to people who aren't familiar.
So Bellular is, very similar to us, except he's way more successful at it because he's got a cute Irish accent and he looks really good on camera. So, therefore, maybe I should start talking in an Irish accent. I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe this is Scottish. Maybe it's British. How would you know? I don't know.
I know. I'm
Anyways,
from the UK, and that was nothing. You
so Bellular, they started as a news company, or sorry, a gaming company, a developer company, but Bellular just hopped on camera and started doing some talks about, whether or not, what the just the news. Like he was really into WoW. He was really into a couple other games. WoW had this big explosion in popularity back when Legion was a thing, which was so many years ago now. And it had this really giant explosion of like what people were interested in watching about. And so they have created a game. They had one a couple of years ago that they were working on, and it was not. It didn't get released. It kind of bottomed out, and that happens in game development. I mean, for every game that's worked on, only like I think it's like 1 in 6 is actually gets to a stage where it's like, yeah, it's out there. I've worked on a couple of games, and yeah, it was the same thing. Even after a very, very successful title that sold millions of copies worldwide, was immensely popular, helped to fuel the rise of a very popular social media company that is now kind of tanking, you can say. I still cannot talk about this game because it was illegal where it was made. It was 100% illegal,
oh.
and punishable by death if you were caught. So I still can't talk about the game. I still can't talk about the developers that I worked with on the title. We started to do a second in the series, and we couldn't get it out because of just the stress of a lot of things happened basically all at once. But yeah, that even following a successful title, we couldn't get the second one out because of stuff, and that's as much as I can go into this. So anyways, their first game fell by the wayside, but their success, Bellular's success on YouTube and with especially crowdfunding and stuff like that, they managed to start working on a new title, and it was it's officially out today. It's not out. It's out to pre-purchase on Steam, so you can now check out the game. It's been unveiled. It looks great. This is built on Endurance, which is a story about the Shackleton's voyage in the Northwest Passage. So that's the area of sea that is north of the Canadian land mass of North America, and gets you to be able to go out to Asia.
Wow.
It is an incredibly dangerous place to be, especially when it was being explored so heavily by Shackleton and by Hudson. Hudson is an almost daily word in Canada because of how influential that trip was, and how very little there's very little like human civilization. I mean, there's very little human civilization a couple hours north of where I live in Canada.
Pretty much anywhere in Canada.
Well, I mean, this is true. Basically, 90% of our population is down within what is it, 100 miles of the border.
Yes.
So it's like it's immensely unpopulated to the north. Whenever people say it's like, oh, the world's overpopulated, I'm like, you haven't been to Canada.
Yeah, we had the third largest landmass in the world. Yeah, we only have like 33 million people that live here, and they're all in, for the most part, southern Ontario. And
there is an enormous amount of like good land up there. Anyways, the journey, the Shackleton's journey was these ships, these wooden ships, tall ships they call them, with with sails and stuff, would try to chart a reliable path through the Northwest Passage, and most of them died. Like these stories were absolutely brutal, where it's small ships of small crew members, and you're sailing out there, and then the freeze comes, and your ship is frozen in ice, and you have to spend a couple months during the harshest winter hours where there's only like an hour or less of daylight every day. and you have to like manage your heating supplies, your oil, that kind of stuff. You have to try and find food on top of like saving food, and so this is what the game is built on. It is not based in our universe. It's actually based in another universe that they've created. It's very similar as far as this particular journey goes. He talked a lot about how that established it. So I really like, I like the fact that he's doing this. I like the fact that this is what you might call a Canadian based game. It's obviously it's not made in Canada. They're in Ireland, but it's interesting to see that story, that very, very crazy story of these people, these explorers who both the North Pole and South Pole, absolutely amazing, absolutely wonderful, heart-wrenching at times stories of endurance and human sacrifice to explore what hasn't been explored. It's crazy how much these people have managed to explore that, and apparently it had a big influence on Bellular. So yeah, so the game is out now. It is basically like a survival management game. So you have the ship and you're trying to survive, and it is it's very interesting. So yeah, I have forgotten the name of the thing, but I think the Pale Beyond, right? I didn't want to get that wrong. It's called the Pale Beyond. It's on Steam. You can pre-order it right now. It is coming in 2022. The developer is literally called Bellular Studios, but it's being published by Fellow Traveler. And yeah, it's a survival game where you're trying to make a crew. You're trying to help a crew survive through winter. So you have to set up ice camps. You have to manage your people. You get to know every single person on your ship, and you have to make really hard decisions at times as to basically who lives and who dies,
Right.
or whether you all live or you all die. And again, it's not necessarily built. This isn't a historical game. It's very much based on a historical game, but it's that. So very interesting thing. Small YouTube, actually, he's gotten quite big on YouTube, but small indie studio making games. And yeah, so now we get to see where this comes out at, whether it's a good game or not. So it's coming in 2022. It was first announced today. Check out the trailer. You can check that out on Steam by looking up The Pale Beyond, and just thought I'd give that a nice shout out because I think it's pretty darn cool.
Just before we move on from this, like, what type of game is it? Because like when I hear about ships traversing the seas, my mind immediately goes to stuff like Black Flag or Sea of Thieves. Like, is it like third person, first person action game? Like,
no, it's like it's a visual novel / base management game.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's a heavily narrative choice based game. So if you have a dozen people starting the game and they all start choosing branching choices, they will quickly have a completely different player experience, quite significantly. So
okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. Like, I want to support people that try to engage in not only ethical game development but ethical reporting. And based on the stuff that you show me of Bellular, he seems like a pretty good dude.
They're pretty solid over there. I would definitely say that they're probably the most accurate person that I know online reporting news and talking about game stuff.
Nice.
They're not as like fiery all the time as like somebody like like the Quartering. They're not as controversial as them for sure. They're not as they don't get into some of the weeds. They're not as personality based as some other news channel types might be. But yeah, I would say they covered decent news. I aspire to have their level of success when it comes to talking about game news and game development.
Mm-hmm.
Although technically I beat them on game development.
Right. Yeah, shout out to the Irish. Half of my family's from Ireland. And then finally, let's just talk about this little thing called Beyond Skyrim. So going back to the whole Skyrim discussion, we probably should have did this story second.
Well, this is a mod, so we need to separate that from
Right. Okay. So
from the actual like news that around Skyrim, and their anniversary release. So this is a mod made by a big team, right?
by a big team that literally go under the name Beyond Skyrim. Now, if you guys don't know what they're all about, as we know, the Elder Scrolls games take place on the continent of Tamriel. And then for each of the games that have passed by, we've played it inside a specific province. In Elder Scrolls V, we obviously played in Skyrim. In Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, we played in Cyrodiil. 3, Morrowind, blah, 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 all the way back. What Beyond Skyrim is trying to do is they're trying to take the existing land masses that surround Skyrim, like the other land masses in Tamriel, and try to create worlds, like those actual worlds, so that you can leave Skyrim and then go into those provinces at the time of the events of Skyrim. So, for example, Beyond Skyrim is working on taking the province of Cyrodiil, the one that we ventured through in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and then updating it as if we're living in it 200 years after the events of Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. And they just put out a trailer because, November 11th, that's the 10-year anniversary of the release of the original Skyrim, and they showed off what they've done so far. They released this trailer, and apparently, according to the frequently asked questions on their main website, they're getting a lot closer to release for the entire mod. According to their FAQ, they say the world building is nearly complete, which is very exciting. They do say, though, that voice acting, implementation, and testing will take some time. But hopefully, when I read stuff like that, I'm thinking like maybe a maximum of hopefully only 2 more years left to wait, because we've been waiting for releases from this team for a long time. They did put out a sort of like early access release where you can play just one small aspect of the Beyond Skyrim Cyrodiil project. It's a mod called Beyond Skyrim Bruma, which you can download right now. You can travel into the northern city of Bruma from Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion in Cyrodiil and play around that little area. But when the full mod comes out, you'll be able to go to the Imperial City. You'll be able to go all the way south to Shaden Hall. You'll be able to go to everywhere that you went to in Oblivion. And it looks great. It's done by an amazing team. And I highly recommend you go check it out, because honestly, this mod, along with the Skywind and Skyblivion mods, where they're actually taking Elder Scrolls 3 and 4 and just updating it with Skyrim gameplay and graphics, I'm looking forward to this mod more than pretty much any other game that's coming out, with the 2 exceptions of maybe Elden Ring and definitely Starfield. Because, like, Saib and I were huge fans of, like, Bethesda when they're at the top of their game. Saib's obviously a big fan of Fallout. I'm more of an Elder Scrolls guy. And it looks like the people behind these teams are putting a lot of love and effort into making sure that they get this right, unlike some companies. But anyways, Saib, did you happen to see this trailer? What did you think of it?
I'm excited for it. I helped to author, I believe it's still one of the biggest mods for Fallout 7.
4, you mean?
Sorry?
You said Fallout 7. That game isn't out yet.
Fallout 4. Why am I thinking 7? Oh, Lord, it must be getting late. Fallout 4 was one of the, I helped co-mod one of the biggest mods for that. So I'm always interested to see how some of these modders are working on it. There's been a new sort of a new Vegas. It's not a interpretation of New Vegas as it was. It's like a current after the fact New Vegas mod that for Fallout that I'm very excited. I'm watching very closely. That's really cool. This project again. This is like this really opens doors, and it builds some pretty cool experiences, and I think that is the future of gaming. I really do think that's the future of gaming. I think that sooner or later an engine will come out that will have a sufficient AI that basically a handful of people can build what the biggest game companies cannot build right now.
Mm-hmm.
because the AI just quantifies things down. You basically get into the game and you go, "Hello AI, I would like you to build a seaside village stretching into a mountain range to the west with Victorian English slash ancient Japanese architecture with a flair of magical devices and that take up like 20% of daily like interactable devices and tools and whatnot. Set it with a kind of a safari style clothing system, and give me a skill system that's based off of 3.5 rules D&D with quadruple the amount of choice class and whatever, and the AI just creates that instantaneously. It's basically how I envision it is how oftentimes people do envision the future is through the Star Trek when they were creating things in the holodeck, where they would say, what was it, the one scene where Geordi takes a book and is basically like, build me an adventure that's similar to this, using this as an outline, but make it in harder and introduce some other elements in it, and instantly you have an entire city.
Mm-hmm.
And a plot and like branching plots and stories and all this kind of stuff is available for you at that moment. It's like that's the level of technology that we're going to get to at some point. We're definitely headed in that direction because we've headed in this direction already with mapping systems. You can already load up dozens and dozens of engines and just say, create a world, and the game will create a visual world. At some point they'll figure out how to do story, and I mean, again, we already have that. We have that. Ash loves these programs that create story, and it's basically at the push of a button. Ash gives it a couple rules, say, hey, I want you to develop a story that has this, and list a bunch of keywords. And then the AI creates a story. And again, those aren't perfect. Those aren't great.
Right.
Those are, in some cases, better than what some companies are putting out right now as far as story and plot goes. Or it's very similar, which is scary, frightening.
Right.
But eventually we're headed in that direction. And once we get that piece of technology, you won't have games that are built by massive studios in the same way anymore. You'll have this explosion of new games created by small teams of authors who and creative minds who go through and create an entire story and then just spend a few years flushing it out. And there's some really great games that have followed that kind of development cycle. They take so long for them to get out, though.
Yeah,
that's part of the problem.
They're so
expensive.
expensive.
It is very so expensive. But if you can cut down the development process, if you can create things on the fly, if we get an AI that can understand video games, and again, we're getting really close. There's all these kinds of AI that play games, and eventually you'll be able to take the information and the direction that technology has improved in that section and say, all right, I don't want you to play a game, I want you to create a game with all the knowledge that you have about what makes a good game, what makes good gameplay. Catalog it with history and games that are already existing. Make me something that's new. Once we get to that level of technology, all it basically comes to make the best sellers of the year is going to be interesting story, interesting style, interesting artwork, and a narrative that's grasping and gameplay that's good. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be able to be created by dozens and dozens and dozens of people at their computer at the push of a button.
Yeah.
And so moving out from there in the future, it's going to be really cool. It's going to be really fascinating. So stuff like this with this project in Skyrim, this is the prelude to those things. This is the coming storm that will destroy most big AAA game studios and reorganize the entire thing.
Yeah. You're listening, Blizzard?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right. And it's like, sure, there's going to be a space for big game developers, but they're going to be, they're going to be creating like full worlds, right? Like they're going to actually be creating full worlds that are, you play an MMO right now. What's the MMO? It's not even near the size of an entire continent, let alone, several planets, not without being heavily like, procedurally generated.
Right.
It's not going to have the story. It's not going to have the 10,000 NPCs, right? Like I look at Star Citizen, and it's like the game is not what they promised, because they can't fill these normal cities with 10 trillion people. But with this technology and with mega corporations making video games, you might get there at some point after a tool like this has been introduced into the system. So you'll still have these hit games with a singular storyline that's created by brilliant individuals, but at the same time, these bigger corporations, they'll have to think big, like really big, and then they'll have to create a world in which you can literally interact with billions of NPCs and AIs all working at the same time doing regular things in their world, and then sooner or later that will explode, and everything will just come out of there and take over the human psyche, so to speak, in some kind of gruesome experiment way. Sorry, wrong tangent.
No, it's okay though. But I just wanted to actually validate what you were saying, because it's really not that out of the bounds of possibility, guys. Just think about about 20 or 30 years ago, where when it came to making movies or making music, where you had to spend all this money and get all this really special equipment in order to do professional recordings. Now, if you're a musician, if you have like $1,000 or less, you can set up a decent professional recording studio in your bedroom, as long as you have something like Pro Tools. Or if you're an aspiring film director, people, like, there are even professional filmmakers that have filmed entire movies on their iPhone. You can do that. And it's not that at some point, video game development is going to get to a point where even the layman can engage in it and create something, just as long as they have a good idea. It's just a matter of time. And I imagine Valve, like they always are, probably going to be ahead of the game in regards to stuff like this. So that's it for today's episode of Maximum News, guys. We've gone over 50 minutes. Had a lot of stuff to talk about today. Thank you so much for joining us for this first inaugural episode on the Triple S League. Very exciting, like Saib said, that we're finally being able to do this the proper way. If you want to see more episodes of the show, if you have any topic recommendations, put all those in the comment section below. Make sure you hit that like button. Like I said at the very beginning, that helps us out a lot. Obviously, I guess I don't really need to tell people where they can find you or find me, because we're here now, right? So you guys could just
follow us here on our main channel, the Triple S League, and we've got tons of news coming with that. But yeah, follow Max too over at Max Darrett.
Darn right. Thank you. I was about to say that. Yeah, just follow me. We'll put links to all the relevant stuff in the description box below. Thanks, guys, and until we do this again next week, just want to remind you, as always and as per usual, you stay yellow.